None of us spoke after Hamid pressed the play button. We just listened, to her voice, to our own, to every sentence. And in the end, it worked. The same voice that once silenced us became the voice that exposed her. I cried in relief, as Hamid sent the record to our father with a voice note adding more information about our state. He had dismissed my words so easily before, brushing them off as exaggeration. We waited patiently to hear from our father. It was past 2 hours before he rang us on Hamid's phone. His voice was strained, rough around the edges. "How are you? Are you still at the masjid?" he asked, the questions tumbling out too fast, too careful. Hamid told him we were safe, that we were still at the masjid. You could almost hear him pacing, rubbing a hand over his face, trying to make sense of it all from miles away. Our father then asked to hear my voice. All the while, the interaction was between him and Hamid. Although it was on speaker, I had not said anything to him. Hamid turned to me, holding out the phone, hoping I would say something. But I only shook my head, eyes fixed on the ground. The hurt was still sitting on my mind, untouched. He did not believe me the first time. I did not want to speak to him. Not yet. Not after the way he had dismissed me before, as if I did not deserve to be heard. I lowered the phone slowly. On the other end, our father's breath crackled through the line, waiting, searching for a voice that would not come. Then he spoke out again. "Tell Nayo, I am sorry I did not believe her. Tell her, I just need to know that she is all right. We will be fine." "What do we do now, Daddy?" Hamid replied him. He told us to wait in the masjid. His voice had steadied, but I could still hear the strain beneath it, that tight, trembling thread of worry he tried to keep from breaking. "My friend, Abu Hannah, will come for you," he said. "He will take you home for the night. Do not go anywhere till he arrives. And do not tell Zara anything," he said. "If she calls or texts, do not answer or reply. I will handle it." The call ended, and the silence that followed was soft but heavy, like the air before dawn. We walked inside the masjid, its marble floor cool beneath our feet to perform salat. Afterwards, Hamid sat near the doorway, his hands clasped, gaze lost in the shadows. I sat beside him, both of us listening for footsteps that hadn't yet come. Indeed, while we waited, our stepmother's calls came one after another, yet we let the phones ring unanswered, mindful of our father's firm instruction. His friend Abu Hannah soon arrived and kindly took us home with him. He lived with his family of 5, his wife and 3 children, a boy and 2 girls. The warmth that greeted us at their doorstep immediately eased the tension of the day. We were welcomed with open arms, offered food until we were full, and then shown to our rooms for the night. I shared a room with the girls, while Hamid stayed with the boy. Before we went to bed, they even provided us with a change of clothes so we would not have to sleep in our school uniforms. I barely slept that night, waking again and again with anxious thoughts about our family's future. Then I had a terrible dream about our father dying. I lay awake long before the first call to Fajr Salat broke the silence of the early morning. I rose to pray, seeking a sense of calm. Afterwards, I reached for my phone and noticed a message from our father. In it, he apologized for not having listened to me earlier on and asked that we stay home from school for now. After breakfast, Hamid sat with me and asked whether I had also received our father's message, the one telling us to stay back and not go to school. When I nodded in confirmation, he hesitated for a moment before sharing the unsettling dream that had kept him awake the night before. I looked at him in surprise and said that I had dreamt something similar. With worry in my heart, I asked, Do you think Daddy might be in danger? Should we tell him about our dreams? We both agreed it was best to warn him, so we sent a message, asking him to be careful and be safe. The following morning, after Fajr Salat, I went to greet Abu Hana and his wife. I also wanted to help with breakfast preparation. To my delight, I found our father in the sitting room, talking with his friend and my brother. Seeing him there filled me with joy. He had arrived before Fajr, safe and well. When we embraced, it was as if months of distance melted away in an instant. He murmured his apology once more, the weight of it evident in his voice. I listened, feeling the sincerity behind his words, and quietly offered my forgiveness, letting the moment settle between us with a gentle, unspoken understanding. We soon learned from our father that our stepmother had called him to say that we had left the house and were not picking her calls or replying her messages, because she had scolded us out of love. She had also claimed that we were now keeping bad friends and had said many things about us that simply weren't true. Hearing this, I felt a mix of sadness and frustration. After we ate breakfast, he looked at each of us, his voice steady but tinged with gravity, and said, "I need to go see Zara today," he began carefully. "There are things that must be said, things that cannot wait." For a moment, the room was silent. Then, one after the other, we looked up at him, with a mixture of concern and determination. "We want to go with you," Hamid said firmly. "We want to be there." I nodded in agreement, our hands gripping his arms. Our father refused, but we persisted. Especially Hamid, he pleaded and told our father to take us with him. Our father then agreed and said, "If you are sure," he said gently, "we will go together." We clung to our father's side. His friend remained beside him, a silent anchor, while our eyes scanned the road ahead. When we arrived at our house, a tense hush fell over the street. Our father paused at the door, taking a deep breath, his hands resting lightly on our shoulder. I could see the struggle in him, anger, sorrow, and a fierce need to protect us in every gesture. He knocked, each rap echoing like a drumbeat of impending reckoning. The door opened, and she appeared, unaware at first of the storm waiting for her. Our father's gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. Abu Hana stayed slightly behind. After we walked into the house, our father spoke first, his voice calm, but carrying an unmistakable authority. "We need to speak. All of us." The words were simple, yet heavy with the weight of betrayal. She faltered, a flicker of recognition passing across her face when she saw Hamid and I beside our father, as though she suddenly grasped the magnitude of what had been revealed. How could you?" Our father's voice broke, with a mixture of grief and anger. "How could you do this to them? To everything we promised each other?" For a moment, she said nothing, letting his words hang heavy in the room. Then, almost too quietly to hear, she muttered, "They needed discipline, they were not listening." "Discipline? That is not discipline. That is betrayal. That is destroying them." His hands clenched at his sides. "I trusted you. I trusted you with their lives. You are overreacting, my love. You do not understand. They are lying. Whatever they told you, do not believe them. I have been a dutiful mother to them. I told you why they left the house. They are lying. Believe me, my love. I understand perfectly," he shouted at her. "I understand that you chose deceit and manipulation over trust and kindness. And now I see everything. I see what I let happen because I trusted you blindly." I saw our stepmother's eyes aim at the front door, as if escape itself could wash away the confrontation. The mask of calm she had worn so well began to crack as the truth closed in around her. Then she lunged toward the door. In the chaos, Hamid, who was closer to the door, reached out. She shoved him aside roughly, and he lost his balance and stumbled, hitting the floor tiles hard with his head. The sight of my brother Hamid, lying on the floor, struck us like a thunderclap, freezing the breath in our lungs. In an instant, we all rushed to his side, except for Abu Hana. With a fury born of loyalty and anguish, Abu Hana sprang after our wicked stepmother, who ran out like a mad woman. He chased after her and seized her arm before she could vanish, holding her fast as justice and rage burned together in his eyes. Our father swept Hamid into his arms and hurried to the car, his movements fierce with worry and love. I followed behind him, as he flung open the door and settled Hamid gently inside. With trembling hands, he turned the key, and the engine roared to life. We sped through the streets towards the hospital. We left Abu Hana behind to handle the matter with our stepmother, trusting his resolve to see justice done. Up ahead, the cry of sirens pierced the street, sharp, urgent, unrelenting. We passed the police cars as they rushed in the opposite direction, their flashing lights painting the road in fleeting shades of red and blue. The moment we arrived, everything seemed to blur into motion. The hospital was heavy with the scent of antiseptic and the weary faces of strangers going in and out. Nurses appeared from every direction, their voices urgent yet controlled, as they lifted Hamid onto a stretcher and rushed him down the long corridor. The wheels rattled against the polished floor, echoing like a heartbeat fading into the distance. Our father and I followed as far as we were allowed, our steps quick, our minds blank with fear. The doors to the emergency room swung open, swallowed him, and then closed again, shutting us out and shutting him away. Through the small glass window, I caught a glimpse of my twin brother's pale face beneath the harsh fluorescent light before the curtains were drawn. In that instant, the world felt unbearably still. I can still remember the stillness of his hospital room, the soft hum of the machines, and the cruel steadiness of the clock that refused to stop ticking. My father sat beside Hamid's bed, his hands clasped so tightly I thought the bones might break. I stood on the other side, too afraid to move, too numb to speak, watching the rise and fall of his chest as if each breath might be his last. He looked so peaceful, almost as if he were only sleeping. But beneath that calm, I knew the truth. The doctors had said the injury to his head was too severe. The damage ran deep into the tender part of his brain. They spoke in gentle tones, but their eyes said what their words could not. He was slipping away, and there was nothing anyone could do. I tried to speak to him, to tell him that we were there, that he was not alone, but my voice broke into bitter tears every time. "Please stay with me," I begged him, my voice trembling through the silence of the room. "Please don't leave me, Hamid," I cried, clutching his hand as if the strength of my grip alone could hold him here. His skin was pale, yet still carried the faint warmth of life, fragile, fading, slipping through my fingers like the last light of day. Tears blurred my sight, falling onto the white sheets that felt more like a shroud than a comfort. I whispered his name over and over, as though the sound might anchor him, might call him back from wherever he was drifting. Around us, the hospital seemed to fade away, no walls, no light, no time, only the ache of love that refused to surrender. Our father whispered prayers under his breath, his shoulders trembling though he tried to hide it. He held his son's hand, still warm, but growing weaker, wishing that somehow Hamid could feel the love we were pouring into that small, sterile space. Then came the moment we had feared since the beginning. The monitor gave one long, hollow tone, and our world seemed to stop. I did not cry at first. I just stood there, staring, waiting for his chest to rise again. But it did not. And still I begged, my heart breaking with every word, "Stay. Please stay." But the silence that followed was heavier than any answer could have been. Our father bowed his head, and for the first time in my life, I saw him weep, helplessly. That sound will stay with me forever. Even now, when I close my eyes, I still see my brother there, the soft light on his face, the faint trace of peace at the end. When Hamid passed away in the hospital, he was buried in the same graveyard as our mother. I refused to go back home. I could not bear to cross the threshold of the place that carried too many bad memories. And father did not push or force the matter. Instead, he packed my belongings and some of his own, and we drove miles to his mother's house in another town. In those early weeks, the grief lived between us like a weight, heavy, insistent, always present. I stayed mostly in my grandmother's room, where sunlight slipped through lace curtains and painted trembling patterns on the floor. I could not sleep alone, so I slept in her room. My father wore his grief silently. To anyone watching, he was composed, but inside, he was a landscape of ruins. He had faced war before, the chaos, the loss, the sharp knowledge that life can end in an instant. But nothing in battle had prepared him for this. At night, when the house folded into silence, he would sit on the floor, arms on his knees, and deep in thoughts. He walked every morning after Fajr Salat, when the streets were empty. He said it helped him breathe. Father was with us for several weeks before the orders came. He was to return to service. I had always known this day would come, although I was in denial. The call to resume the life that had once defined him came. That afternoon, he sat at the kitchen table, running a thumb along the edge of his cap, its fabric worn from years of wear. The coffee beside him had gone cold. I sat quietly, across the table, tracing objects on the wood with one finger. Granny was putting away dishes that were already clean. He cleared his throat, and both of us looked in his direction. "Mama, Nayo. I will be going back soon," he said simply. Granny pressed a hand to her chest. "After everything, how can they ask this of you, right now?" I looked up, eyes wide and unblinking. "You are leaving us again," I said, the accusation thin and trembling. "I thought, after everything, they would give you more time." Granny pressed on. I saw him try to smile, but it faltered before it reached his eyes. "Yeah, I will be leaving soon. Just for a while." I shook my head, my voice breaking. Hurt tears streaming down my face. "You always say that. What about us?" "I know," he said quietly. "And I wish I did not have to. But this is my duty. It is what I have been trained to do. Out there, people need me, and I cannot turn away. So, you just leave. Do we not matter, Daddy? Nothing good came from the last time you left. We lost my brother." "No," he replied, gripping my hands. "I leave because I love you. I leave because I want to make sure you have a home, that you can eat well, that you can go to school and grow up safe. That is how I provide for you, by doing this work, even when it hurts. Even when I do not want to go. I wish I could stay," he admitted. "Every day I wish I could stay. But being here for you like this, every moment at home, is not enough to keep the world safe or keep you safe. I have to step out and do my part, so you can have everything you need and more." I cried and hugged him tightly. I would miss him. "Listen," he said softly. "I go because I have to, but I will always come back, inshallah. And when I do, we will be together again. Duty may call me away, but love brings me home." When the morning of my father's departure came, I came out of Granny's room and saw him standing in the sitting room, uniform pressed, eyes steady, heart heavy. Granny's hands trembled as they rested on his shoulders, the same shoulders she had once carried as a child, now burdened with the weight of duty. "You always come back by Allah's grace," she said, trying to believe it as much as she said it. He nodded. I approached them with eyes wide with unshed tears. He embraced us and told us to please stay safe for him. When he finally turned to leave, the air felt stiff. We followed him to the car. The door of the car closed. We waved until the vehicle disappeared down the road. I withdrew further into myself. I think my granny understood that, and she didn't try to pull me out before I was ready. Instead, she gave me space, not the cold kind that makes you feel forgotten, but the tender kind that lets you breathe again. I spent hours on the porch, wrapped in one of her shawls, staring out at the garden she had kept alive for decades. There were times I would flinch at sudden sounds, or stare too long at nothing. I missed out on school. I didn't want to go. The thought of crowded hallways, the hum of laughter, and the weight of curious eyes felt unbearable. I did not look forward to anything. The days folded into each other, colorless, heavy, slow. I had no long-term goals. The future was a fog I could not see through, and I had no desire to try. People spoke of dreams, plans, possibilities, words that once meant something, but became foreign, unreachable. I was not angry about it. I just felt hollow, like the part of me that used to hope had quietly disappeared. I tried, but I was disinterested in life, because everything reminded me of what I had lost, of what had been taken, and of who I used to be before the world went dark. Granny then decided she had let me drift long enough, that it was time to reach me where I was hiding. A woman named Mrs. Bakar came to the house, my counselor. She was gentle, with calm eyes that reminded me of still water and a voice that carried no judgment, no rush. At first, I resisted. I had grown comfortable in my silence, in the numbness that had become my home. But she did not seem to mind. We would sit for an hour, sometimes saying nothing, sometimes just breathing in the same quiet. Over time, I began to open up. She never filled the pauses. She just held them for me, as if there was something fragile and worth protecting. Granny would sit by my side during our sessions. She was a great support system. My father's calls were always filled with love and encouragement. Granny would often speak with a quiet certainty that reached past my sorrow. "Your twin," she would say, her voice soft but unwavering, "would want you to be happy. Hamid would want you to carry the touch of love, to be a light for those who have had similar experiences, and for those who have no voice." She kept saying it, her eyes full of faith I had long forgotten. Slowly, those words began to settle in me. They wrapped around the edges of my brokenness, not to erase it, but to make space for something new. I realized that honoring my twin did not mean carrying his absence like a weight. It meant letting his memory make me stronger. It meant using my own recovery to reach out, in the smallest ways, to the people who felt unseen, unheard, or unworthy. Hamid died in his attempt to make the truth known. Her encouragement became a quiet mantra. In moments of despair, when the past threatened to drown me, I could hear her voice clearly in my mind. And slowly, I began to understand to live fully was to honor those lost and to extend warmth to those still struggling. My stepmother used to say that people do not talk about these things, they shush it up, because if you speak, you will ruin your life. Nobody will want you. I resolved to heal, to share my story so it could help others, and to raise awareness that sexual abuse is real and pervasive. On the other hand, the law had caught up with my stepmother, and she was imprisoned for her horrific acts. At 16, I resumed high school in my grandmother's town. Having lost several years, I found myself far behind my peers. Despite the setbacks, I persevered, determined to finish what I had started, even if it meant walking across the graduation stage later than those my age. By the time I reached college, the experiences of my past had left a deep mark on me, shaping not just who I was but who I wanted to become. I threw myself into my studies, but even more, I became fiercely active in social advocacy. I joined student organizations focused on child protection, volunteered at shelters, and spoke at forums about the urgent need to address abuse and neglect. Every campaign, every awareness drive, felt personal, a way to transform my own pain into purpose. I organized workshops, wrote articles, and lobbied for stronger protections for vulnerable children. Slowly, I began to realize that my voice, once silenced by fear and trauma, could now speak loudly for those who had none. College became more than an academic journey. It became a mission to fight for justice, to prevent others from suffering as I had, and to ensure that no child would have to face abuse in silence. By the time I graduated, I had not only completed my degree, but had built a small but powerful network of advocates, volunteers, and survivors. Life after college was not easy. There were days when the stories I heard threatened to overwhelm me, and nights when I questioned whether one person could ever make a difference. But each challenge reinforced my resolve. Over time, I realized that transforming pain into purpose is a lifelong journey, and that even small victories can ripple outward to create meaningful change. I got married at 29. The ceremony was simple yet heartfelt. My father's face shone with a joy so profound it seemed to illuminate the entire room. Pride softened his features, happiness glimmered in his eyes, and a subtle relief lingered in the curve of his smile. It was as though seeing his daughter wed was the perfect punctuation to both my journey and his own, a quiet celebration of life's milestones. Indeed, with every difficulty comes ease, and with every test, a path to closeness with Allah. Alhamdulillah.
Stories like this are closer to reality than we think. Not all scars are visible. What secret does a home keep when laughter disappears? And who protects the children when the danger lives inside the home? This has been another tale from Echoes of Life Experiences. If you would like to hear more, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for staying tuned.